the City of Battle Creek, Michigan. And this is the Battle Creek City Commission meeting for August 16th, 2022. It is 7 o'clock. Our invocation tonight will be a moment of silence, and our Pledge of Allegiance will be led by myself. Would you please stand for a moment of silence? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you very much. Next item on our agenda is roll call. Madam Clerk, when you're ready.
Commissioner Blood is absent. Commissioner Gray?
Here.
Commissioner Herring?
Present.
Commissioner Lance?
Here.
Mayor Benke?
Here.
Commissioner Morris?
Here.
Vice Mayor Reynolds?
Present.
Commissioner Sophia?
Here.
Commissioner Zenda Wilson?
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Proclamations and awards, we do not have anyone. I'm going to turn it over to Ted Daring, our Assistant City Manager, to make a presentation of Joe Soborowski from Battle Creek Unlimited.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and good evening, everyone. And you know, because of the pandemic, it's actually been a couple of years since we had BCU come and present in this particular setting, but we're pleased to have President and CEO Joe Soborowski back this evening to give us an update on their activities. I'll turn it over to Joe.
All right, thanks, Ted, and Vice Mayor, Mayor, Commission. It's a pleasure to be here in person. I was just thinking that I think it's been well over 2 years that we did something in person, so pleasure to be back. Just to give you a brief update, we're not going to go back 2 years into history, but we're going to do kind of our activity for the last year, and we just kind of try to keep it high level and update the City Commission on what we've been working on and some of the projects. So what I always like to start with is where's Battle Creek's unemployment rate? These are preliminary numbers. We're at preliminary 4.9%, and historically and traditionally you can see that we lag the state of Michigan, and the state of Michigan lags the national average. But from where we were in 2019 to 2020 and now today, we're kind of easing back to where we were before the pandemic. Strategic plan, we're in our, I know there's a word missing out of here, I just caught that, but we're in our last year of our 5-year strategic plan, and what I want to let the Commission know is we're working on more of a what we're going to call a comprehensive economic development plan that's going to have pillars of many things beyond just what BCU does. We won't be, and then from there we'll create our strategic plan for the next 5 years. But this comprehensive economic development plan is going to talk about things beyond just traditional economic development for the City of Battle Creek. We won't be the sole facilitator. We'll be leaning on the City Commission to help us implement some of these things along with other partners as well. I didn't anticipate we'd get close to rolling something out for just some brief looks and some adjustments towards the end of the year. Strategic plan year 4, as you can see, we have nearly $123 million of investment. McCamley is a big piece of that, but we've got a few great projects out in the industrial park. Viking Surveys broke ground just this last month, $25 million, 91 new jobs. It's an ESOP company. We put Big B on there just because it's out in the fort. The fort is kind of a food desert, so we're really looking forward to just going around the corner and getting a coffee. Duncan Aviation, a very significant expansion as well, $30 million. It's actually $30 million plus. It's probably closer to the $40 million range. Blystall, North America. We also do track what's going on with the cannabis sector. Just kind of breaking down some of those projects that I talked about. Viking Surveys, they make the large MDOT snow plows, so there's going to be lots of chassis. This is their Great Lakes location. They're going to fabricate here, and they're going to put those onto the snowplow trucks in a 5-state region. What we really like about this company I mentioned was an ESOP. An ESOP is an employee-owned company. The profits that are made at that location stay at that location and are shared with the employees. They do profit sharing, full benefits, and the employees actually own part of the company. Blystall, North America, again, I just touched on this, 69 new jobs, $8.7 million investment at their current facility. Duncan Aviation, just to give you an idea, your bottom right-hand picture there, the very right-hand bottom portion of that is their 150,000 square foot hangar that would be their addition there. What's important about this, this really, Duncan Aviation is a premier employer in Battle Creek. They provide great jobs, and they groom their employees up from the ground up into management, and we're very fortunate to have them. They're always willing to be at the table when we're talking about childcare and other initiatives as well. The TIFA is assisting this, the TIFA in the city of Battle Creek, with a $2.5 million investment in an apron. Aprons are very expensive, and this is a unique project because the airport is technically an asset of the city of Battle Creek. Real estate, land development, the Watkins Road spec building is up. We also invested $1.7 million to upgrade the road there. Just today, the TIFA approved phase 2 of their development. The developers are executing phase 2 of a 3-phase process, which would allow for another building to go up. They have half the building occupied. The tenant is yet to be announced, and they're temporarily leasing the other half. So once they fully fill up the building, they plan to start phase 2. What's important about that is our building inventory is down. And with the supply chain issues across the nation, the world, things are starting, people are holding larger volumes of stuff. So industrial buildings in the continental United States are becoming a little bit more attractive than what they once were. So as we talk about the CHIPS Act and bringing supply chains home, having industrial square footage or the opportunity to put up additional industrial square footage is very important, and Battle Creek's well positioned for that. Just talking about some of the other things that we do manage a revolving loan fund. It's called the Direct Investment Fund. We approved a loan to the McCamley project this year. We did a loan on Battle Dog. Battle Dog is i.e. New Holland. We use this fund to do bridge notes. As the MEDC is supporting projects with grants, they're last dollars in, so you have to create a bridge note until the project's complete. The MEDC dollars come in, and then we get our dollars paid back, and you garner some interest on that. I'll talk about it a little bit later, but they're set to open in the first quarter of 23. COVID loans, we issued a lot of COVID loans during the thick of COVID, and these are the breakdown of who's making payments, how many's been paid, and any deferments. So we've had a total of $2.7 million of assistance there. Strategic plan, we're doing some community development projects. We administered the Washington Heights Entrepreneurial Fund, which is ongoing. We learned a lot during that process. It was new to us. We were traditionally doing real estate, not necessarily doing real estate and entrepreneurship, so it was something that we learned a lot from. We can tweak going forward. But this project's ongoing. The folks here that have been awarded or conditionally awarded, some of them are still working through some of their milestones before they can get to awarding. But again, new for all of us, but I think when we look back in 2 to 3 years, this is going to be something that we can point to and learn from, and it's going to be pretty successful. Community development projects, we talk a little bit about the hotel project, the McCamley Plaza Hotel, on track to hit Q3 of 2023 opening. We did win an award on this, the MIBiz Economic Development Project of the Award for its category. So the only reason we put that in there is we're getting Battle Creek's name out there. People are starting to pay attention to Battle Creek, and I think that's important that the outside world, even in the state, starts to pay attention to the things that we're doing in Battle Creek collectively. Strategic plan, year 4, community development. We're working with Martin. I know he was here at your last meeting providing an Oprah. Now he can move on to the MEDC process. This was a building that BCU bought strategically to kind of hold and get it into somebody's hands that's looking to do some more housing. A couple other projects that we did that finished up this year. We bought 99 West Michigan, 119 and 121. We really bought those, got those out of hands, put new roofs, put new facades on them to get them into a state that developers can really start to see the potential. Some of our buildings are, I don't want to say too far gone, but so far gone that it makes it even that much more financially infeasible for a developer to turn it into something. So we're trying to get these buildings into a condition that a developer can see the potential, but actually make their dollars go further and our dollars go further by putting the dollars in the building ahead of time. Community, Torty Taco, they opened this year. This was one of our award recipients for the restaurant RFP. I think everybody probably has gone there, so it's a great addition downtown. Strategic plan, year 4, again, I know this has been a 5-year project, but I can tell you this is moving forward. They've got the senior lending they're closing on it this week, and they're going to be opening in the first quarter of 2023. Looking to hire about 70 to 80 individuals. The large beer garden structure will show up in September, so you'll start to see stuff take shape beyond even what's there right now in the coming months. The TRAIN program, we administer what is called the TRAIN program. This is encouraging employers to partner with us as they have employees that are looking to move to the area to put down payment assistance on a home. It's also for employees to take advantage of getting out of a rental situation, possibly into home ownership for folks that are already in the community. It's been pretty successful. We've had 18 recipients thus far. I can say a majority of those folks are Kellogg employees that may not have traditionally.
This is the remix. So. That Michigan.
It's in the air. It has nothing to do with microphones.
Okay, so I'll just keep going. One thing I do want to bring attention to is we're working closely with the city of Battle Creek, your staff, the airport. We're in a moment of time where there's not going to be dollars allocated like this in decades. And we are at the table making sure that we're getting our fair share for Battle Creek. So we did apply for the Build Back Better grant, a $59 million application for a drone park at the airport. We were unsuccessful, but I'm going to build upon that on the next few slides. Then we were denied, we were encouraged to submit for an appropriation request to Senator Peters' office. You know, you always go large and you whittle your way down, but they came back to us after the $29 million request and said, could you find us something for $3 million? And that $3 million is the radar system for what we call UAS drones. So we submitted that, we're still waiting on that, but the fact that they came back to us and asked us to find them a certain dollar amount for a project was pretty encouraging. The defense community, there's $59 million going on into the defense community at the Air National Guard. The BC TIFA is funding the roundabout for that entrance, and the Marine Corps are getting $49 million. Little known fact, but BCU does employ lobbyists in DC to protect our military interests here in Battle Creek, to not only protect it, but to grow it. This is a result of some of that. VA Medical Center, I know we got some pretty discouraging news in March, but as of August 2022, the VA has been removed. That process is dead as we know it. So we should not have to worry about the VA being removed or relocated anytime soon. But we shouldn't let our guard down, because this won't be the first attempt. There will be other attempts in future years. River naturalization, talking about, you know, going after these dollars. We submitted to all of our state reps, really, all of our local state reps, and Rep Hall, and actually Tom Albert really pushed this through, and Hodsma supported it. But $13 million to begin the process of river naturalization, and that was just approved in the most recent state budget. And then we also put in a request to Congressman Peter Meyer for road realignment in that section for about $2 million. And that has made it through a certain point, but it's after reconciliation, we'll see if it survives, but it actually has progressed to the next level. And just kind of letting you know, I mean, we are working for the community. We've leveraged nearly $30 million of grants. We've leveraged $17 million from the MEDC and others, and we've awarded over $2 million in this last year. Looking forward, I won't read through all of that, but we're looking forward to getting these projects that are underway over the hump, and really position Battle Creek to take advantage of these state and federal dollars. I mean, there's still a lot of state and federal dollars out there that are one time, and it takes a lot of work to position yourself to get these, and we're doing it. And I would just say, looking ahead, what do we need? We need more housing, we need more housing, we need more housing. on all different levels. And if we're going to grow this community, we're going to support new jobs, we need more housing and place-based economic development. And then when I talked about that economic development strategy, those are going to be two core pillars and priorities, probably 1, 2, and then there'll be some other non-traditional things in there, such as transportation and probably childcare, that are very important. Questions?
Joe, thank you very much. Are there any questions of Joe at this time? Commissioner Lindgore Gray.
Hello, Joe.
Hi.
Thank you for your presentation and for the staff being here. Appreciate you all. I had a couple of questions. The first question has to do with all the great stuff that you just outlined here. I remember sometimes a couple years ago, maybe, you know, there was great storytelling going on through some marketing efforts. We're not pure Michigan, but what can we do to tell our story? What are you looking at to talk about some of the great things that you're doing?
You know, that's a function of time and resources. When I say resources, I'll be honest, I think one thing that we could do, when I say resources, not necessarily money, but we need additional human resources. We are continually running and accomplishing project after project, and we don't really have time to really take a step back and market it and tell the story. And, you know, we need additional human capital to accomplish. So I know we're not doing it well. I know we can do it better.
That would be great. It's a challenge for a lot of
Yeah.
employers, so I understand. The other part, as I'm out talking with constituents, I know you kind of went past that particular slide, but cannabis seems to be on everyone's mind. From your vantage point, what is the 1-year, 5-year view around the cannabis industry here in Battle Creek?
I think cannabis is consolidating. You're starting to see the market. There are shops closing already. It's kind of, I think we're at an absorption point to where I think we're all right, and you're going to see to continue to consolidate. So I don't know if there's any additional growth. Maybe R&D kind of stuff. What you're doing with the product, what you're putting it in. But I would say, as far as shops on the corner, I think that's well taken care of, and I think we've got plenty of grow facilities. So I could see some consolidation there as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other commission questions? Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Joe, for the presentation. Appreciate you being here. You're doing awesome things out there with the team. Just a question about the housing, affordable housing.
Mm-hmm.
Is this something that we really need?
Right.
Can you give us a picture as to what that might look like soon, or?
Yeah, so this is not going to be an exact answer, but you know, most affordable housing developers go through and they apply to MSHDA, Michigan State Housing Development Authority. It's a competitive process, and there's only so many that are funded on an annual basis because they only have so many funds. So you have everybody throughout the state competing on those. And one thing that I think, we haven't had an affordable housing development, correct me if I'm wrong, in over 20 years built in Battle Creek. And one thing that if you're a developer developing this and your AMI, we're competing against, let's just say Kalamazoo. Their AMI, or their average median household, is a little bit higher, which means they can garner a little bit higher rent. So we are not only, it's a double-edged sword. We're in a competitive process with the rest of the state, but if you're a housing developer in this region looking to do affordable housing, you're going to develop, probably you're going to put a submittal develop in Kalamazoo because your rents are going to be higher because their median household income is a little bit higher. But you can still use the same workforce. So those are some things that we're going to have to overcome. And how do you overcome them? We're going to have to figure out how to bring soft capital to the table. Maybe we do residential TIF districts. There's a bunch of tools that we're going to have to do, but we are at a disadvantage because our market is a little bit different, and we're going to have to overcome that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Wilson?
Thank you. Thanks, Joe, for the presentation. A couple things. First of all, based on your last comment, I wonder about our business attraction process? And are we looking for those higher paying positions so our AMI can increase? Is that
Right.
part of the long-term goal?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and then our new one will be even higher, so, yeah.
So I think that's part of this conversation is the long-term goal is that we have people making more money so that we can have better housing
Correct.
options for them. But in this meantime, it's going to be really tough, I think. The other thing is I really appreciate BCU's cross-sectoral approach to what you're doing now. I think, you know, it shows up that you're sitting at tables that in the past BCU hasn't been at. You're thinking more comprehensively about your approaches. And I wonder if in there is some solution potentially to the challenge that, that Commissioner Gray just mentioned about being able to tell the story.
Yeah.
And I wonder if there isn't some shared positioning or something that we could do to help us collectively tell the story of our town. So just more comments than questions, but thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments by the commission? Joe, we want to say thank you very much, and please thank your staff, too.
That's another thing. I couldn't do it without my staff, and I got a great board, so
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Next item on our agenda is chair noting any added or deleted resolutions, Madam Clerk.
There were none.
Okay, next item on our agenda is petition, communications, and reports. I'll turn it over to our Assistant City Manager, Ted Deering.
Thank you, Mayor, and I will turn it over to our Revenue Services Director, Linda Morrison, who has some preliminary year-end information for the fiscal year 22 budget.
Good afternoon. I knew Joe would be a hard act to follow, but I do have some really good news to share with you for these preliminary year-end financial statements. So thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, and Ted for letting me talk with you a little bit about these June 30th, 2022 preliminary and capital letters financial statements. I'm going to focus on the general fund. But for the benefit of us all, while there are multiple fiscal years going on at the same time, I want to point out that these are July of 21 to June of 22 financial statements. Right now we're 2 months into a new fiscal year, which we call fiscal year 23. And so for me and the finance department, we have to really concentrate on what fiscal year are we really talking about. And we have, in our finance department, had 2 retirements, 2 individuals promoted within the finance department, 2 new hires since March. And so we're playing a little bit of musical chairs, so I want to give a shout out to the finance department staff for having numbers ready for these preliminary financial statements. But no, we are continuing to do adjustments in preparation for our auditors who will be here in October. We love their visit every single year, and they will present to you audited financial statements in December. That'll be Raymond Robson standing up here talking to you about the final financial statements for June 30. This budget status report that is attached to the agenda and will be on the city's website will focus on the general fund, but also has statements for the major and local streets, as well as the water and sewer funds. So for the general fund, I am really happy to report that revenues are over expenditures, again, preliminary, to the amount of $1.3 million. This is a favorable difference from our adjusted budgeted revenues over expenses, which after the adjustment that you approved in June was $184,150. So that's a substantial positive variance. The current adjusted budget includes the year-end amendment that was approved in June. Revenues for the year are at 102% of budget and 0.1% over the prior year. The prior year included a little more than $3 million in one-time federal money that is not repeated in this year. That's why the comparison of total revenues to the prior year is a relatively small amount. But income tax revenue is the thing that you hear me harp about pretty much every time I'm here before you, that it is just such a hard thing to predict and anticipate. But I'm happy to say that that revenue source is 15.45% higher than a year ago. So the TRAIN program that Joe talked a little bit about, bringing people into the community, they're paying income taxes, is helping with that revenue source. Also, one other large thing is the constitutional state shared revenue increased $510,000 over our year-end adjusted budget amount. We haven't received our August payment yet, which includes an amount for June, but these numbers are based on the state's projected numbers. They're seeing income tax revenues higher than they expected, sales taxes higher than they expected, and thus the money coming out in the state shared revenue is also higher. Recreation revenues for the year are a welcome surprise. The pandemic, as you know, was devastating to that department through the beginning of the fiscal year. Recreation charges for services are almost $360,000 over the adjusted budget. We actually adjusted their revenues down with the estimates that we did for the budget workshop, and they ended up being higher than anticipated. They are 32% higher than the prior year. The golf course again exceeded expectations with revenues over budget by over $215,000. So there's still a lot of people getting outside and doing recreation things. And of the $2.3 million that you see in charges for services on the recreation part of the financial statements, $1.24 million of that is from the golf course. The year-end budget amendment that was adopted in June included a transfer into the general fund from the American Rescue Plan Act funds that we got, that $30 million allocation that was originally anticipated to be for lost revenue or general government services in the amount of $526,000. We're not anticipating needing that. These numbers do not include that transfer, so I think we're going to save that ARPA funding for future periods. On the expenditure side, total expenditures across the general fund are at 98.12% of the budget. But again, we're still processing accounts payable through the end of this week and making adjustments for allowances for bad debt and things like that. Preliminary results show both police and fire budgets came in under their adjusted budgeted amounts, which is a very good thing. Recreation expenditures also are 30.1% higher than the same period a year ago, and a lot of activity going on now. Good to see all of that coming back. Fuel costs, everybody feels it at the pump. We're no different. Fuel costs rose throughout the fiscal year. Department heads had to be very careful, wanting to monitor and conserve. We do budget those costs on a very conservative basis with the help of the fleet services. My written report that's attached to the agenda has a chart that shows the budget, the actual, and the prior year. And you can see from that there is a 65% increase in fuel costs this year compared to last year. Does anyone have any questions?
Any questions for Linda, Vice Mayor? No? All right.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Next item on our agenda is public comments regarding consent agenda and resolutions not on the consent agenda. If you'd like to make a public comment regarding the consent agenda and resolutions not on the consent agenda, please raise your hand and we will acknowledge you to come forward to the podium. You will have 3 minutes to make your comments. Please state your name and address before your comment so that we can get back to you. Is there anyone who would like to make a public comment at this time? Reese.
Good evening, Reese Adkins, 24 Popular. I'm going to be speaking on Resolution 468, a resolution seeking authorization for the sales of 6 vacant tax revent properties. Once again, here we go. We're selling properties, but for what? Are we, it wasn't too long ago where you guys approved several of the vacant parking lots and vacant lots down on Van Buren to be sold. And I haven't seen anything being done with them at all. Or we can continue to sell these properties and continue to give them people for them still to sit empty. Where is that putting money into the city budget for revenue or whatever else, because these properties are being just left emptied even though they're being sold. We really need to look at, let's look at getting some of these properties where there's things built on them, not just selling them to be left empty. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Reese. Just so you know, we do have a policy when it comes to vacant lots, and we feel it is very effective. And that's why some of these people have requested to purchase these. If there is someone in the city that would like to purchase a vacant lot, if you contact our city manager's office, they will help you out. Are there any other public comments at this time? John?
John Kennefic, 234 South Avenue. I'm going to be speaking in regards to Resolution 475. Let me read it to you. A resolution seeking adoption of the proposed debt management policy. This is part of the backup material. This is the first page. It says, in managing its debts, it is the city's goal to achieve the lowest cost of capital within acceptable financial terms. 2, obtain high credit quality. 3, maintain access to the capital credit markets. And finally, 4, preserve financial flexibility. I get really nervous reading some of this because I kind of read what isn't being said. And my questions to the citizens or the financial director of Battle Creek are, when you take out a municipal bond, which is a loan, and it might be for X amount of dollars for the loan, how much does it finally cost when you finally pay it off, if you ever get a chance to pay it off? For example, if you have a $10 million principal that you take out for something, and the citizens have to pay that back, and it might cost $40 million, you just spent, the taxpayers got overtaxed by $30 million. There is no accountability in here. This just simply says we're going to be a little bit more capable when we take out more loans that the citizens of Battle Creek have to pay through taxation. That's not just the principal of the loan, that's all the debt that goes along with it, all the interest rate. So before you really start accepting something and do more management on it, you might want to financially get your act together. I do not believe, myself personally, in mortgages and land contracts. The reason is very simple. They always cost me more than what I have to buy the product for. By staying away from things and putting money aside so that when it's time to make a move, I have the money available, there is no interest because the product is automatically purchased. Unfortunately, the city government of Battle Creek does not have that policy. It would be very interesting for the commissioners to take a hardcore look at any municipal bond, or you'd call it a loan, the city takes out. How much was the principal, and when it was finally paid off, what was the end result? This is money that's reduced or removed from the taxpayers and citizens of Battle Creek. This is an extra cost that is unnecessary. You might want to consider capital improvement plans where you put money aside for such projects as the police department. And so when the time comes, you don't have to spend $10 million more than what the cost of the police department cost. It would have cost $15 million. It was $10 million on top of that for interest. If you'd put money aside, there would have been a $10 million savings. Unfortunately, you guys don't do it that way. You like putting the taxpayers and citizens of Battle Creek into debt. Thank you.
Are there any other comments at this time? Seeing none, we'll move on to our next item on the agenda. And this is commission comments regarding medium business. Are there any commission comments? Commissioner Wilson?
Commissioner Zenda Wilson moves for the support of the consent agenda.
Commissioner Sophia supports.
It's been moved and supported to approve the consent agenda. Are there any comments by the commission? Seeing none, would you please vote?
Well, let me do that again.
The consent agenda has been approved. Next item on our agenda is Resolution 475.
The Government Finance Officers Association, GFOA, lists the adoption of a debt management policy among its best practices. Per the GFOA, debt management policies are written guidelines, allowances, and requirements that guide the debt issuance practices of state or local governments, including the issuance process, management of a debt portfolio, adherence to various laws and regulations, post-issuance compliance for IRS purposes, and post-issuance compliance for continuing disclosure purposes. A debt management policy should improve the quality of decisions, articulate policy goals, provide guidelines for the structure of debt issuance, and demonstrate a commitment to long-term capital and financial planning. Adherence to a debt management policy signals to rating agencies in the capital markets that a government is well managed and therefore is likely to meet its debt obligations in a timely manner. This resolution seeks to adopt the proposed debt management policy.
Commissioner Zenda Wilson moves for support of Resolution 475.
Support.
Been moved and supported to approve Resolution 475. Are there any comments, questions, or clarifications from the commission? Once again, I just want to thank the administration for pursuing this debt management policy. It has been on Rebecca's to-do list for a few years, and I really applaud everyone working together. Are we prepared to vote? Please vote on Resolution 475. Resolution 475 has been approved. Next item on our agenda is Resolution 476.
The city has had a fund balance policy in place since 2011. The Government Finance Officers Association, GFOA, recommends that government should establish a formal policy on the level of unrestricted fund balance that should be maintained in the general fund for GAAP and budgetary purposes. Per the GFOA, it is essential that governments maintain adequate levels of fund balance to mitigate current and future risk, examples, revenue shortfalls and unanticipated expenditures, and to ensure stable tax rates. In most cases, discussions of fund balance will properly focus on a government's general fund. Nonetheless, financial resources available in other funds should also be considered in assessing the adequacy of unrestricted fund balance in the general fund. Historically, city policy has required maintaining a level of 8% of unrestricted fund balance in the general fund. However, GFOA recommends at a minimum that general purpose governments, regardless of size, maintain unrestricted budgetary fund balance of no less than 2 months of regular general fund operating revenues or regular general fund operating expenditures. This would equate to approximately 17%. This resolution seeks to amend the city's fund balance policy to maintain an unrestricted budgetary fund balance of no less than 2 months of regular general fund operating revenues or regular general fund operating expenditures.
Commissioner Zenda Wilson moves for the support of Resolution 476.
Support.
It's been moved and supported to approve Resolution 476. Are there any comments or questions by the commission? Seeing none, would you please vote on 476? Resolution 476 has been approved. Next item on our agenda is Resolution 477. When you're ready, Madam Clerk.
The City of Battle Creek's Engineering Division has been working with Land and Resource Engineering to design the reconstruction of a small parking lot along State Street behind 67 and 56 West Michigan Avenue. With the anticipated opening of New Holland Brewing Company at 64 West Michigan Avenue, these changes are needed. The site work for development will be completed this construction season and is being performed by Hoffman Brothers Incorporated. Following the approval of the design, staff reached out to Hoffman Brothers Incorporated for a price for the city lot improvements. If the city of Battle Creek were to competitively bid the work, we would lose valuable time and competitors would not be able to utilize Hoffman Brothers Incorporated in economies of scale, coordination, and mobilization. Hoffman Brothers Incorporated is a trusted contractor who has been used on several projects in the past by the city. This resolution seeks authorization for a contract for McCamley parking lot repairs with Hoffman Brothers Incorporated in an estimated amount of $157,261.23.
Commissioner Zender Wilson moves for the support of Resolution 477.
Support.
So moved and supported to approve Resolution 477. Do we have any questions, comments, or clarifications? Seeing none, would you please vote on Resolution 477? Resolution 477 has been approved. Next item on our agenda is Resolution 478.
9 years ago, the city assumed the downtown development responsibilities, which includes the seasonal planting program as well as the winter display program for downtown Battle Creek, including ongoing care of downtown plantings, inspections, trash removal, hand weeding, fertilization, deadheading, and hand watering of non-irrigated containers. This resolution seeks authorization for the city manager to execute an agreement between the City of Battle Creek and the Lila Arboretum Society for the provision of educational programming, park stewardship, and urban forestry consultation to the city and its citizens, as well as installation and maintenance of the seasonal planting plan and winter display for downtown Battle Creek for fiscal year 2022/2023.
Commissioner Zender Wilson moves for the support of Resolution 478.
Commissioner Sophia supports.
Been moved and supported to approve Resolution 478. Are there any comments, questions, or for clarifications?
Just a quick comment, Mayor, if I may.
Yes,
I
Commissioner.
just want to lift up Lila for all that they do for the city and what a wonderful asset it's been, not just in what they're doing with this resolution, but also just the space out there and all of the events that are going on. And so the farm that's there, Kathy, all the work that you've done out there. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner, for your comment. Any other comments? Seeing none, please vote on Resolution 478. Resolution 478 has been approved. The next item on our agenda is general public comment. If you'd like to make a comment regarding matters over which the City Commission has control, please raise your hand and wait for us to acknowledge you, and then come forward to the podium. You will have 3 minutes to make your comment. Please state your name and address prior to the beginning of your comment. Are there any public comments at this time? Yes, John?
John Kennefic, 234 South Avenue. On July 5th, you chose a new commissioner, and during the application process, this is one of the questions that came out from Commissioner Wilson to the applicants up here. Have you been on any boards of the City of Battle Creek or something of that nature? I didn't know it was a requirement to be on boards to be actually be qualified to become a city commissioner. If you were on boards prior to you becoming city commissioners, and this is how it turns out, I don't think that's a great thing in regards to boards. But I'm going to give you an example of a person that was on one of your boards. John Hennick was on the Housing Board of Appeals. People would have concerns and they'd bring up here and they'd have to explain how they're going to fix their property or whatever the concern was. Prior to a particular meeting, John Hennick, a member of the Housing Board of Appeals, went to a number of the houses prior to those people coming up to the podium. He found one house in just short of perfect condition. The only problem that had was a little peeling paint at the peak of a roof failing the southern exposure. When the day came when people were coming in here to defend themselves and explain what they were doing, a little old 80-year-old woman came up here for that property. John Hennick could not understand why the code compliance was sort of beating up an 80-year-old woman. And there was kind of a dispute between them and John Hennick. What happened was rather interesting was John Hennick made a move that no one had ever made before on the Housing Board of Appeals. He made a motion that there would be a postponement of that person's house, that 80-year-old woman's house, for 6 years, not 6 months, 6 years. It was supported and passed. One of the code compliance officials walked up and said, "You can't do what you just did, John Hennick." And he says, "Guess what? We just did." John Hennick was removed from that board. People are going to be getting older in Battle Creek, and they're going to have to wonder what's going to come under their attack of the code compliance if they're not perfect the way the code is. The Code Department and the Inspection Division has never issued an order to repair this building or a dangerous building when they put fences around it so no one would be killed from the stone or concrete that came off the pediments. You live up to a standard that you expect everyone else to live by, but when it comes to the government, you fail to live up to that very standard you expect of everyone else. Maybe you want to try to live up to that standard, so maybe other people and the citizens might take notice that you're living under the same ordinances that you expect everyone else to live under. Thank you.
Are there any other public comments at this time? See none? Do we have any commission comments tonight? Seeing none, we'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much for attending.